Welcome back to the Life of Tash. I'm Tash. Today we're doing a solo episode which I haven't done in a while, and it's questions from my community. So I'm going to dive straight into it. First question is, what do you wish more submissives understood about consent and communication? The very first thing that I thought of when I saw this question is that passive does not equal submission. And I think this is like my biggest ick factor when people it's always in like cis men always come to me and like, oh my gosh, it was amazing. Like she just let me do whatever I wanted to us. She's so submissive. And it just really annoys me because submission is not something that doesn't require choice or someone just lying there and taking what you give them. That is not the point of submission. Like true submission is an active choice. It's a choice you make from a place of power. It's not because you're too scared to speak up or because you don't know what you want or you're just trying to please the other person. And again, when someone just kind of like lies there and doesn't communicate, it actually makes the dominant's job so much harder. It puts all the responsibility on you as the dominant to kind of like figure out like what they might desire or what their boundaries are or what the limits are. And like not only is that difficult for the dominant, it's plain unsafe as well. Real submission requires you to know what you want, to be able to advocate for yourself, to be able to speak up. And I think that's what people often get confused when they think about submission. They think it's about being really quiet and just like doing what the other person says. And that's just not it at all. It's really, it's a very powerful position to be in. And you've got to know how to step into that role in a really conscious and ethical way. Next question. What's the difference between a session with someone experienced versus a complete beginner? So, just to be clear, I love beginners and experienced people. I think people always think that you prefer the more experience someone has as a client, but that's not always the case. It's just different. Like with someone who's experienced, you'll find that they know themselves a bit better in this kind of context. They know their body, they know what they want, they know kind of the edges you can push. There's also, especially if it's someone that you see regularly, and I think maybe that's probably the biggest difference between clients to me is people that you see like more regularly because you have time to build the trust and the dynamic up, and like really scenes and dynamics just get better with time. And once you have that, you can have more complex scenes. You can play a bit more on the psychologically complex sides as well. Push those kind of edges, which can be really, fascinating and exciting. And you can have some really deep and transformational experiences once you're kind of at that level. So with beginners, it's slower. It's more from an educational lens because I'm kind of guiding and in that teaching role. I mean, you're always guiding when you're in a dominant role, but with someone who's a bit more beginner, I guess there's a bit more emphasis on me to really, take control of the scene a little bit more. I have to check in a lot, whether that's reading their body language because they don't know how to self advocate for themselves really well yet. And just making sure that they're doing okay. So yeah, I think that's really the difference between an experienced and a beginner's for me. As I said, I think that the main difference is between someone that I see regularly versus someone I see once off, whether they're a beginner or they're experienced. Because I need to build a dynamic. I need to build a rapport with someone to really get those scenes to be at that level where they're just like gonna blow your mind. Next question. Rivalry. God, that's a hard word. Between DOMs is crazy at times. How do you manage friendships? Honestly, I don't really have time for like petty rivalry. I think rivalry, especially in this space, comes from the scarcity mindset. I just think people, come from it as like, there's not enough clients and I need to, push people out the way to make sure that I'm successful. And I've just never approached this work or really any work that I do in that way. I've trained a lot of pro dom, so I train people who are my like direct competition, even in like the exact city I live and work. Um, Obviously, I wouldn't do that if I was so scared and coming from such a scarcity mindset. So my like thinking has always been is that like the type of dom or coach or business or teacher that I am is not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I'm not going to suit every client. And I come from it from that mentality, like people that would be attracted to me aren't going to be attracted to, the next dom, and vice versa. It's like sometimes clients are a better fit somewhere else. Um, and I think it's just about finding your market and being confident in your unique offering, what you're bringing to any type of business, not just this one. In regards to like friendship aspect with other DOMs, I just don't engage with DOMs who are really coming at it from a nasty competitive point of view. If they are, they're not in my life for very long. The ones that I surround myself with, we support each other, we learn from each other. We share knowledge, we support each other's growth. We're trying to lift each other. We're trying to lift each other up. So that's kind of what's in my life. As I said, if someone's coming at me with jealousy or competitiveness, I just remove access to me. It's pretty simple. Have you ever dominated a woman in front of her husband? Yes, and it's one of my favorite scenes. There's something really powerful and I think special to be invited into another couple's intimate journey together. Let me be clear, like what's really important is that they're both on the same page and not like one person is dragging the other person. So assuming that the situation is both are there, willing, excited, consensual, it's amazing. Like often what has happened here, although occasionally it has been the reverse, but what I have seen more over the years is generally a man bringing his partner or wife in, usually to watch me dominate her has been more often than not. I have done the reverse. I have done like double dom sessions often with the partner or wife to the man. With the man watching the wife, normally he just watches. Occasionally I'll like invite them in to do something, especially if I've seen them like more than once, or I have one couple I see regularly. But a lot of the time he's really happy kind of just like watching his partner or wife exploring this other side to herself. Maybe it's a side that she's kept hidden and it's new, and it's really exciting, I think, to watch your partner in exploring a different side of themselves. As I said, sometimes they participate, sometimes they just witness, but it's a really intimate thing. And when you're part of that, it is I take that as a very privileged position to be brought into that situation. And it can be a really transformative experience, not just for them individually, but also as a couple, learning about each other's desires, letting them explore in a really safe container. It can really reignite their connection with each other. And especially, bringing play to any relationship is going to elevate it. Next question. Do you prefer a whip or cane? It depends. Like a whip is not something you're gonna whip out, excuse the pun, in a session. One, just space requirements, and two, I don't know, just like the cracking of a whip. It's more theatrical, I think, a whip. Like it sounds great. There's an artistry to it that I love, but it's not something, as I said, I'm just gonna like whip out in a session to use. A cane I would use more. So if I'm going to choose one, I'd probably go with a cane. A cane's, very direct. It's very sharp. It's very focused. It leaves marks that last. So there's not just like what you feel during the scene, but there's a beautiful reminder for like days or however long afterwards that I like kind of that psychological aspect to it. But yeah, they're quite different tools, I think. I think one's more of like the artistry of kink and one's more of a practical, you would use it in a session. Next question. Are you married? Yes, I am. I don't know if there's any more to be said about that, but yes, I am married. I have been married, I think, for just over 2 years now. I've been with my partner for 5, 6 years now. He's amazing. It's great. Favorite comfort food is definitely fries. Not French fries, not like the skinny ones, because I think especially Americans will think of the really skinny ones. I actually prefer a bit of a fatter fry myself. Um, I've never met a fry I don't like, I don't think. Sweet potato fries, even. I don't trust anyone that doesn't like fries. So there you go. Do you have a degree? If so, which? I have 2 degrees. My undergraduate degree is in communications, and then I also have a master's of business. I spent a decade in corporate, hence my degrees. My business background actually has been a really big asset in this work. Learning about power dynamics in a corporate setting, learning how to negotiate, how to read people, how to implement systems. I learned all that in my corporate life. And I've really been able to apply it in not just like the dungeon, but in my business as a whole, and bringing that more strategic and professional aspect to it. I really think it's been a massive help to me in what I've done and what I've created. Next question is very direct. Age, height, weight, your hobbies, and what do you find attractive in a guy? So, I turned 40 last year, which I was really happy and still happy about. I love entering this period of my life, and I do understand now why everyone says it like just gets better. I'm 5'7". Honestly, I don't weigh myself currently. I weight train. I also have Hashimoto's, which means I can put on a lot of fluid retention, and I find weighing myself just freaks me out a lot. So I've just stopped doing it. In regards to hobbies, I'm very active. I love keeping fit. I used to do marathons until I just started injuring myself too much, but I still run about 3 times a week simply just because I love it. I weight train, especially like recently, I've really gotten into heavier weights as I'm getting older. I love my Pilates twice a week, and I love like walking as much as I can. I'm really passionate about like embodiment practices and like movement and breath work and things like that. As many of you might remember, I did my coaching certification last year. So I did my foundation certification. And that really introduced me to, I was doing it prior, but I think it just cemented it even more. Embodiment practices, breathwork practices, like all that's like pleasure practices. It's really important thing to do. So I really try and make time for that in my life. I love to learn, like whether that is in like a course, a structured course, like in certification that I did last year. And then this year I'm actually doing more of that, doing some majors in that. Or just reading. I love to read. I love to read about psychology, love to read about all things kink, or just reading for fun is something I'm trying to do more of. I'm also a mum, so a huge chunk of my time is obviously like on mum duties, like school runs and making dinner and just spending time with my daughter. She's still at an age that she wants to be with me, and I'm very conscious of that. So I do, when I am with her, because I co-parent, when I'm with her, I am like with her. Like my attention is engaged. I'm not like I'm trying not to like look at my phone. I'm trying not to do work too much. I'm really trying to be present, because it's very fleeting the years they want to be with you. And yeah, I do also like, I guess a business is not a hobby, but I do spend a lot of my time, content creating, coming up with ideas for my business because I love it. So yeah, in regards to what I find attractive in a guy, first of all, I'm guys and girls. So just, it's not just guys that I'm interested in. But when it comes to, I guess, men, if that's what you're asking in particular, what I find attractive is like intelligence is a big one. I'm sapiosexual, which means you need to turn my brain on. And I'm also a demisexual, so like connections and things are really important to me. Emotional maturity, very rare these days, though I find. Someone who knows how to hold space for themselves and also for me. I'm someone that obviously holds space a lot for other people in my business and what I do. So to find someone that doesn't need me to hold them the whole time is important, and also that can hold space for me to be able to kind of let go and surrender, I find very attractive. I am drawn to men who are confident and can kind of like stand on their own 2 feet, I guess. Obviously, I'm quite an energy to match. So I need someone who can, how do I say this? Who can not manage me, I don't think is the word, but someone who can match my energy at least. Like they can't be afraid to stand up to me and things like that. And I guess someone who's done a lot of self work. I've done a lot of self work. So people that I don't need to, not that I would fix anyone, but like they're not looking for me to fix them at least. That's really important. And I think last is like a sense of humor, because I like to laugh. I'm very sarcastic. So if you can't match that, it's just not going to work. Next question is thoughts on religious play, including Muslim, how far to go, and why some like it. Look, religious play is one of those more edge spaces where psychology, taboo, and personal history kind of all collide with each other. It can be incredibly powerful if done consensually with full awareness. It it's a delicate balance, I think. For some people, religious trauma is really deep. And, not just, I know this person has asked in particular with Muslim, but also even with Christianity. I've worked with a lot of people that have really reclaimed themselves through kink after a very Christian upbringing where, kink and sex and sexuality was really a taboo and shamed. So recontextualizing them in a really safe space can be really healing for many, many people. And by playing with it in a scene, you are kind of taking the power back. You're kind of saying, like, this doesn't own me anymore. Like, I'm taking control of it. So a lot of people use it as like a reclamation process. Other people, it's about taboo. There's a lot of turn on for humans when we play with taboo. The thrill of breaking the rules, the thrill of doing something you're not meant to do, or is that forbidden? That's incredibly like hot and a massive turn on for many people. But again, you need to handle it really carefully and really consciously in those scenes. In regards to, you asked how far to go, that's entirely dependent on like the people involved, the relationship they have to their religion, their boundaries, and what is the point of the scene, I guess. I would never push either person or people doing a scene if they're not comfortable with it. It also can be re-traumatizing to people, so you do need a lot of negotiation. But look, if it's for reclaiming power, if it's for the thrill, the taboo, like I think that's completely fine and valid. I think the key is just, as always, is like a lot of communication, a lot of consent, and a lot of aftercare. Why does gay BDSM look more intense? Does it? Maybe. I think there's a few reasons for this perception. I think one, like gay men, particularly in kink spaces and just in maybe like sexual spaces altogether, they've had to fight for their rights to explore it openly. And so there's a history of like having to reclaim their pleasure, having to, really refuse that shame. And I guess that's created a culture where the intensity and authenticity is really celebrated. And it's not being hidden anymore. I mean, obviously in certain arenas, it's still very much hidden. I think also like there's a lot of like gay BDSM is a bit more visible in media and like online, and there's a more like clubs that I can think of. I think like straight kink historically is more behind closed doors. I hope that's changing. I think that's changing. But I think like the gay BDSM scene are a little bit more public facing with it. But like in my opinion, like orientation and intensity have nothing to do with each other. It's really about like the people and their connection and their willingness to explore. And I've witnessed incredibly intense and deep scenes across all genders and orientations. So I don't think it's as simple as like one orientation is more intense than the other. Next question. How to find the right master for a 24/7 lifestyle. You could really use this with a master or a mistress. Obviously, this person is looking for a master. Um, I'm going to be really honest. Finding the right person for a 24/7 dynamic is like finding a life partner, even more difficult, possibly, because you're handing over a level of control that requires an extraordinary amount of trust. So, first, I guess, and I start this with whatever I'm talking about when it comes to kink, is like find your desires. And in this case, what does 24/7 mean to you? Why are you drawn to it? Is it a mindset? Is it for protocol? Is it for rituals? Get really clear on what you want, and not what you think you're supposed to want. So yeah, come the first thing is, what do you want? What are your desires with this? Secondly, like vet the hell out of potential partners. This isn't something you rush into. Like this takes a long, long time. Like you need to build, as like I said, trust. Um, you need to have excellent communication skills. You need to know how you are going to handle conflict. Um, what are the boundaries? How they're going to respect your boundaries? How you're going to respect their boundaries? What's the consistency going to be like? What's their experience with this? Do they understand the responsibility they're taking on? Are they doing their own work? Do they have support? So, not just thinking about what your needs, which you would have hopefully established in like the previous step, is what are your wants and needs, but also looking at theirs, because they've got to align, especially in a 24/7 kind of dynamic. You need to align each other's wants and needs. Third, as I've mentioned, you need to start really slow. Um, you can't jump into a 24/7 on day one. I mean, I don't recommend jumping into any kind of kink relationship on day one because you really need that trust established. So it's really about building it brick by brick, trying things out. Some things are going to work, some things aren't. You're going to have to negotiate, you're going to have to renegotiate, you're going to have to course correct at times. So yeah, go slow. And like I always say, go softer than soft and slower than slow. And I mean it with this as well. And I guess, yeah, it's just about, I think it's just about finding the right person. I think it's about not expecting someone to just control out of ego. It has to be a consensual power exchange that's serving both of you, it's enriching both of your lives, and that you're doing it in a way that's sustainable and not draining. So don't settle on anyone. It's worth waiting and going slow with this. Next question. I had this asked to people and I kind of put the question together, which is, do you see couples? And I don't think this was meant in my professional life. It was kind of indicated in my personal life. So yes, I do work with couples as a dom and a coach. I'll just answer that. But yes, I do play with couples as well. I've been very open about my lifestyle. I am non-monogamous, and me and my partner play both together and separately. So, and I used to like, I think the first kink I ever tried, just trying to think. I mean, I probably played around with other things, but my first like real thing I ever got into was the swinger scene. I wouldn't really say I'm like as into it anymore. I'm more into probably play parties versus like the actual swinger scene. But yeah, that was kind of my first foray into kink kind of stuff, I guess. Next question is advice for DOMs trying to go pro. So I guess you need to treat it like a business, because that's what it is. First, you need to get really crystal clear on your niche. Like, who are you serving? What is making you and your approach unique? What are your service offerings? Don't try to be everything to everyone. Like, own your uniqueness, own your lane. Secondly, invest in the skills, whether that's taking workshops, whether that's getting a mentor. I recommend mentors regardless, as in like maybe another dominant or someone in the scene. Um, you need to understand the practical side of things, like even just from a safety point of view. So you do need to train in learning how to do, you know, ropes or impact play or whatever you want to offer. CBT, obviously, that with this work there are safety issues and risks. So you do need to know what you're doing. It's also about understanding psychology is a big one. Knowing about things like the different Dom archetypes, or understanding submissive psychology, or understanding things like, edge play or humiliation. BDSM and kink are very psychological processes. So you really need to understand what you're leading people through. You need to understand how to hold space. That's a really big one. If you can't hold space for someone, you're not going to be very successful, I don't think, in this profession. Third, build your brand. You need to have some sort of professional presence, obviously, online. And I think building a brand is one of the best ways you can do that. Don't underestimate the power of personal brands these days. I guess this has been really an area that I've pushed with myself and something that I guess my business and corporate background has really helped me with. So you do need to think of yourself as a brand and how you want to come across with that brand. Fourth, like protect yourself. You need to think about things like screening clients, security measures, having contracts, knowing your own limits and boundaries and really sticking to them. I guess when you come into this work, if you don't have those boundaries in place, you're really going to get a bit lost. I think you really need to know and be firm in your boundaries and not let people push you off them, because clients will try. Also, energy boundaries is my next biggest one. I always tell professional people wanting to go into the professional space, don't burn out. I say don't burn out, but I kind of feel everyone in like who works with energy has to learn it the hard way, unfortunately. But if you can try and help it, be really aware of your energy and how much it's being drained and come up with methods to protect it and to replenish it, and really understand what I say is that, energy is not a tap. You don't get to just turn it on and let it pour out. It is a bucket. You get a finite amount every day, and you need to choose very wisely how you spend it. So that is always something I tell people wanting to go into this profession. And lastly, I think like if you're doing it just for the money, I don't think you're going to be very successful. To do this work, you need to be really, really passionate about it. It takes a lot to do this work. It takes a lot of you physically, psychologically, emotionally. And if you're not doing it from a place of absolute passion and love, you're just not going to last. What's the biggest misconception vanilla people have about being a dom? I think the biggest one is that either that it's all about pain and being a mean, aggressive bitch. I think they're the biggest ones I come against. Like, yes, pain is an element of BDSM, but you can have entire scenes, entire people that love this space and kink, and they're not into pain at all. Like it's so much more than that. Like as I always say, it's about psychology, it's about leadership, it's about holding space, it's about surrender, it's about navigating boundaries, it's about pushing your limits. It's about energy. Like it's so much more than just pain. And I think the other one that I mentioned, the mean, bossy, aggressive bitch, people think it's just like people bossing someone else around. But like real dominance is about leadership. It's about responsibility. It's about caring for another person. And it's about creating a really safe space that they can surrender in. So I really hate that people think that it's all just like mean bitch dom. Like, yes, there can be scenes where you're playing up to that, but like that is not the essence of dominance. So, next question. What's one hard boundary you'll never cross in a session and why? This is really easy for me. It's no safe word. No safe word, no session. I get asked about this more than I would like to admit. People putting in an inquiry wanting no safe word. Um, like consent is the foundation of play. It's the foundation of everything that I think kink and BDSM stand for. So it's so unsafe to not have a safe word. Like how do you communicate or how do you stand in your power as a submissive if you don't have a safe word? How are you going to communicate that a line's been crossed? How are you going to communicate that things need to slow down? How are you going to communicate when you need to stop? And listen, I've had people ask this, not from people I regularly see. This is people I've never seen before. They don't want a safe word. And here's the thing, like anyone that asks you not to have a safe word are not safe themselves. They don't understand kink and BDSM. They don't understand the responsibility a dominant and themselves, even as a submissive, are taking on. They're prioritizing some fantasy over safety. And for me, that's a deal breaker. Last question. How do you handle judgment from people who don't understand what you do? I don't really care. I mean, I acknowledge that it exists, but I don't absorb it. I don't defend myself to people who, people often, if they're the ones complaining or have a real problem with what you're doing, it's more often about themselves and not you, or in this case, myself. Often I'm triggering something in them, or there's a shadow side of them that they're just not recognizing, and I'm just kind of like maybe reminding them of that. So I don't really take it on me. It doesn't really bother me. I know the people that matter in my life, my friends, my family, my community, and I get so much love and support, even my online community. I get so much support and love from that, that it just doesn't bother me that there's people that don't agree with this. And like, as I always say, like your opinion of me is your business. It's not my business. So yeah, I did a life shrinking to other people's comfort levels, and I decided that I'm done with that. And yeah, I live my truth now. So thank you for all the amazing questions. I know I didn't get through all of them, but I really appreciate everyone who submitted questions. And as always, stay kinky.